Hello and welcome to another video of the Tungsten Wire. Thank you for joining us today. Before we start, go ahead and give us a like or subscribe. Maybe don't like yet because you don't know what the video is about, but subscribe. Um, Today we're going to be talking or watching James O'Brien push back against a Zionist on why he supports Israel's tactics, which are genocide, by the way. Now, James O'Brien is a normie. And now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with being a normie, but what that means is James O'Brien does not have the he doesn't have enough education on the Palestinian conflict to have a nuanced opinion, really. But I think he does really well here. Well, I think he's going to do really well here. I haven't watched the video. We're going to watch it together. So without further ado, let's go ahead and watch, and let's go from there.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say I'm a supporter of Israel personally, and what they're trying to do.
Oh, that's
okay. So he's a supporter of Israel, and James O'Brien goes, "So am I." What are you a supporter of, James? Are you a supporter of their apartheid, of their 54 laws that discriminate against Arab Israeli citizens, of the genocide in Gaza, of the settlements in Israel? What is it that you support? The East Jerusalem occupation, the occupation of Gaza's airspace, Gaza's borders, and waterfront? What is it that you support? Right? You can't say you support Israel and I know it's so early in the video to be already going into this, but you can't say you support Israel when they're doing things that are objectively inhumane. Right? I don't say I support Canada in general. Well, what do you mean you support them? Right? I assume you mean you support their right to exist, but no nation has a right to exist. And Israel definitely doesn't have a right to exist in the way that it exists right now, which is an apartheid state as an oppressor of the Palestinian people. So come on, James, tell me, what do you support? Anyways, let's restart this and go from there.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say I'm a supporter of Israel personally, and what they're trying to do.
Oh, that's where we part.
That's where we part. Well, I'll say the following: for any Israeli or any soldier that's shot anyone indiscriminately, and certainly a civilian, they should be held accountable. And there are many cases in Israel, where there have been terrorists who have been disarmed, and then someone in the IDF has gone and shot them still, and they have been put in prison in Israel. That's what happens.
Nope. No. We had elected ministers of the Israeli government going and protesting and getting soldiers freed from prison. They weren't in prison for more than 24 hours after raping Palestinian prisoners. They don't hold them accountable. I'll tell you what happens, and I know this from my friend Abdul Rahman, who lived in the West Bank for, I think it was 17 years. I forget now. I think 17, 18. He lived a good portion of his early adult life, teenage and early adult life in the West Bank. What happens is the courts will try these soldiers, and they will, on paper, give them some type of punishment, but they never serve it. Never serve it. So that when the time comes and people go like, see, you let them get away, they're like, no, see, this guy got a 9-year prison sentence. How many years did he serve in prison? None. No, sorry. When we arrested him, we kept him in a holding cell for 6 hours, so technically 6 hours. So don't start with me with this. Oh, no, they don't. And we know that there have been massacres after massacre after massacre, and none of them are being held accountable.
So the fact and I'm not sure, to be honest with you,
I don't quite understand what you've just told me. You can take all the time you want, Johnny. There's no rush.
Okay, thank you.
You're talking about terrorists in Israel.
In Israel, there have been cases where terrorists in Israel have been shooting, and Israeli soldiers have been present and disarmed them, and then another soldier has gone and shot that terrorist, and that person from the IDF has been held accountable.
Yes, but that's in Israel.
Put in prison. No, my point is
that's in Israel, where everyone.
Okay, so now I see what the guy was saying, and yeah, James O'Brien's right. That's in Israel. So the terrorist was probably an Arab Israeli or some type of Israeli citizen, or at least a permanent resident of Israel.
One can see it happening.
Correct.
Because there's
My
no
point
journalists
is that
banned. There's no journalists banned from Israel, so you wouldn't be
I'm
able to
with you.
sweep that under the carpet, would you? But in
I'm
Gaza,
with you. I'm
yes.
with you. My point is that if someone has shot and killed a civilian, or in this case, Israeli civilians, and they were the IDF that's done it, and they have no justification and had no threat towards them, they should be.
Anybody who has killed a civilian and they have no justification. That's the words of this guy. There is no justification for killing civilians. There is no justification. No, think about it. What justification can there be? They're civilians. He threw rocks at my tank. Can't kill him. There's something called proportionate retaliation. That would not, like, murdering someone for throwing a rock at your tank is not, what do you call it? A legitimate retaliation to that. Also, you're an occupier. It's a good thing they're throwing rocks at you. Get out of there. But anyways, that's not going to be helpful.
Held accountable. But when we look at
but they're not being, are
the
they?
situation as a whole,
I'm gonna have to be a little bit strict with you, and I hope you appreciate that that's fair. But you can't say I support something because I believe that something should happen. You can only support it if that thing is happening.
Correct. I agree.
And it's not.
All I'm saying is
hang on. It's not happening. They're not being held accountable. Nearly half of the air-to-ground munitions that Israel has used in Gaza have been unguided. They're literally called dumb bombs. There's no control or discretion over where they land at all.
There is discretion. They've been warning civilians to move from one side to the other side, and Hamas not allowing them to move from one side to the other side because they want as much.
There's no.
Oh my God! So this is obviously an older video. I didn't realize the date. It doesn't say it on the. But anyways, doesn't matter. We're still gonna watch it. That being said, we know now that it wasn't Hamas that was keeping them from leaving. Sometimes it was Israeli soldiers, but most of the time it was gangs, Palestinian armed militias, like the popular forces run by the Al-Shabaab family, who are ISIS aligned and backed by and armed by, yes, you guessed it, the IDF. And this isn't me saying it. This is one of their ministers saying it and explaining. The Times of Israel brings it up, and I talk about it in another video. Times of Israel writes about how this minister talks about why they need to arm these militias. And right now, after the ceasefire has been announced, we are seeing people. We are seeing a vacuum for power begin, and Hamas is now executing a lot of these gang members, and there's clashes now, and that's who was keeping them from going. So in reality, it was Israel that was keeping them from leaving, and then they were using dumb bombs to drop down on these people. It becomes so sinister once you start seeing the whole picture.
There's no evidence of that, of them being prevented.
There's no evidence of Israel warning.
No, there's no evidence of people being prevented from moving. But even if there was, then telling people of a specific ethnicity to move out of their homes is pretty close to ethnic cleansing, isn't it?
What?
Another thing that I don't know why it's not being brought up. Let's say we say, hey guys, you need to leave this neighborhood. We're about to obliterate your neighborhood. You're not going to have a home to come back to. But hey, at least we're letting you know so you can leave and stay alive. And then Hamas blocks them from leaving. The moral thing, if you're the most moral army in the world, the moral thing to do is not drop those unguided 2,000-pound bombs. But no, they still did, didn't they? Like James said, there's no proof of that happening. And now that, reports are coming out, we're realizing that it's actually, IDF affiliated criminals that were doing it. Even then, they weren't being blocked. But think about it. If they're not allowed to leave, or if they're not being allowed to leave by some Palestinian faction, that should mean that, okay, we can't drop the bombs now. But remember, Palestinians aren't humans to these Zionists, so they didn't mind. Actually, they were probably happy. Well, obviously they were. They were keeping their. It was their gang that was not allowing them to leave.
Why is that the case if they've got Hamas terrorists hiding in their homes and
well, there's
hiding
no Hamas
amongst
terrorists in the Holy Church complex.
How do you know? I'm interested. You know
because
that.
the Latin Patriarchate of Jerusalem said so, and they'll be in daily contact with the people who've been shot
They
dead.
weren't there either. It's in a church in Gaza.
So then you've got some people. Then you've got people in direct contact with the Christians in that complex saying there are no belligerents here, and then people like you, with respect, Johnny. No, I won't wait a sec. I won't wait a sec because we can't keep spouting from one position to another. You can't keep saying they should be held accountable. They are not being held accountable, which means that your grounds for supporting what is happening have disappeared from beneath your feet in the course of a single. I know you disagree, but I'm just telling you what everyone else can hear.
Let me explain why. The general goal of what Israel are trying to do is they have to carry that out. If you had Hamas on your border sending rockets for the last 17 years to you, you'd also realise that they have to.
So there we are. So you are supportive of everything, including two women being shot dead by snipers.
No, because not at all.
Also, his assumption that there were belligerents in the church doesn't make sense. Yeah, I'm sure the Islamic jihadist group Hamas has been allowed to have a base and is running a base out of a church. By the way, no proof has come out. No proof has come out of the Al Shifa underground base that Hamas had. Where's the proof? We're still waiting for it. But they got away with it. They got away with bombing 36 different hospitals.
If particularly Israeli soldiers have gone wrong and done something wrong, that doesn't mean the whole general cause is a question at all. The general cause.
Well, what do you think a war crime is?
A war crime. There could be a war crime. This particular instance.
But that wouldn't affect the general cause, though. So how many war crimes do you think would affect the general cause?
I don't know. It's a good question. But on the whole, 90% of what they're doing is trying to get back.
They were shot in cold blood inside the premises of the parish where there are no belligerents. 3 Israeli hostages shot dead, waving white flags, having taken their shirts off. So what is it that you think you are supporting when you ring in to me today?
I'm supporting the eradication of Hamas, and I'm supporting.
Well, how's that going?
Hostages. Pretty well. I think there's probably 20, 30,000 Hamas soldiers or whatever they're called, terrorists, and they're probably doing quite well in getting rid of them. At the same time, they're trying to free up the hostages. One thing I don't understand.
But all we know.
They weren't trying to free the hostages. We know that now. We knew that there was a deal on October 9th, and Netanyahu was like, hell no. So that's all BS. What he supports is more land grab. This caller is supporting more land grab, genocide, and he hates Palestinians. That's it.
About the hostages in the last 48 hours is that the Israeli Defense Force shot 3, and the wider analysis of the pursuit of Hamas leaders.
Sorry, just one more thing. Yeah, so they killed 3 Israeli hostages, which is hilarious. Not hilarious. I mean, it's tragic that they killed them, but it's funny that they're like, oh well, we're not operating in bad faith. We aren't trying to kill civilians, but when 3 Israeli civilians who were in their underwear came out waving a white flag, they shot all 3 of them. That is 100% a war crime. And if those were Palestinians, we wouldn't have heard about it. Well, we probably would have heard about it from journalists, but it wouldn't have mattered. I mean, I'm sorry, but that was a story that showed that they didn't care about any type of international law.
Leaders is considerably less optimistic than yours, although I appreciate you weren't expected to be asked about it. So we can't claim that what is happening in the church compound in Gaza, or we can't claim that the oldest mosque in the area, the Omari Mosque, 5th century Byzantine church, which was destroyed earlier this month, St. Porphyrius's church, the oldest in Gaza, damaged in another strike in October, displaced people there, 57 disabled people in this compound, which was set on fire. They've now lost electricity. None of that can be justified on the grounds of trying. Let me finish, please. Let me finish. None of that can be. No,
it can be, and we've seen Hamas terrorists.
None of that can be justified.
In all of these places.
So if Hamas are hiding in a building full of disabled people, you support Israel bombing that building and killing everyone in it. So what do you support, Johnny?
To fight those Hamas people.
So
just
what
like
do
the
you
British
support?
The British did the same thing. Everyone, this is war.
And that's why the Geneva Convention was invented, to stop them from doing it again. So here is a building full of disabled people. You think there might be some Hamas people hiding in it, even though there is no proof, and everybody there... I'm going to finish, Johnny, and everybody there says there isn't, and you support bombing it and killing everyone in it. As long as when it turns out there were no terrorists in there, as long as everybody is held to account, Johnny. Am I right?
How do we know? How do you know there are no Hamas terrorists? We've seen them hiding in schools, in churches. We've seen it.
So you are. Why are you arguing with me? So you do support bombing a building full of disabled people because there might be some Hamas terrorists in there?
I don't. I support I support trying to shoot terrorists within a building like that. Otherwise, you could say. Otherwise,
the Patriarchate said that earlier on Saturday, an Israeli tank fired on part of the church compound with 54 disabled people inside. It caused a fire that destroyed the building's generator, the only source of electricity, and some of the disabled people can no longer use their respirators.
So the caller was like, and you know for a fact there was no Hamas. It doesn't matter if Hamas was in there. You can't be bombing or shelling from your tank a compound full of disabled people. If Hamas is in there using them as human shields, as Israel likes to claim, then yeah, it's despicable, of course. But there's a reason we have like when there's a bank heist, right? I mean, there aren't that many bank heists, but when there is a bank heist and they take everybody in that bank hostage, we don't just go and drop a bomb on them because, hey, we got the robbers. Yeah, we killed 24 bank tellers, a couple of office managers, and like 14 customers in there as well. But we got the 4 robbers. So, mission successful. Everyone would say you're crazy. So shooting and shelling a church that is 3,000 years old, by the way. So 3,000 years old under the protection, a 3,000-year-old church under the protection of Hamas was able to, withstand, Islamic jihadist rule or whatever. But Israel bombed it anyways. I don't know what my point was with that. I don't know why I went with that. But anyways, my point is 54 disabled people in a church. Doesn't matter if there is 100 Hamas people. You can't be bombing it. You got to negotiate. You got to do something. Maybe you do some like infiltration type stuff like they did with Osama bin Laden. Right? Osama bin Laden when, they infiltrated the compound and took him out and took out his cronies. Maybe that's what you do. Keep the people safe by doing something like that. I don't know. I don't know what the solution is. I understand it must be hard to figure it out. But first off, no proof. No proof Hamas was in there, by the way. No proof. You can't be blowing it up. It doesn't matter if Hamas is in there. I don't understand what this customer is trying to sell.
That's very sad. It's a terrible,
Isn't
tragic...
it just, Johnny? It is indeed.
But whose responsibility is... Who started it? Was Israel firing on Hamas on the 6th of October?
The person that fired the tank is responsible for that. And the people that fired the guns on October the 7th are responsible for what they did. But if you want to argue that Hamas is responsible for what Israel is doing, then you put yourself in the same intellectual position as the people who argue that Israel is responsible for what Hamas did.
Okay. This one is going to be a bit nitpicky, but Israel is responsible. Well, the Israeli Zionist movement is responsible for what Hamas did. Because Hamas is a symptom, right? It's a symptom. And you do not try to, when it comes to, the medical field, you do not treat the symptom, you treat the sickness, the underlying sickness. The underlying sickness is the oppression. The underlying sickness is the apartheid. Right? So Hamas doesn't exist. Hamas doesn't need to exist and cannot exist and doesn't exist, has no support if there's no oppression, if there's no apartheid, because they have nothing to fight against. I'm not saying that there wouldn't be some, racist gang that is trying to, go after Israelis for whatever reason. But if there was a one secular state with equal rights for all, Hamas would have zero support. Because why? They're not needed. Hamas even says that they wouldn't exist if it weren't for this. So Israel is responsible for what happened. I'm not saying Hamas has no agency. Don't get me wrong, but when you try to do peaceful resistance, peaceful protest, and you get shot, and IDF snipers are having competitions on how many kneecaps they can take out, whether it's children, men, women, disabled, doesn't matter. Right? The Great March of Return, of course, I'm talking about. When that doesn't work, when you go to the international forum and try to plead your case, and America's there vetoing everything, so diplomacy doesn't work, what's the next step? When you take away every single type of negotiating tool, eventually violent resistance is the only resistance left. And that's what Netanyahu and every other prime minister before him allowed. It's what the Zionist movement wants.
Responsible for what they do, because before Hamas went and took these
I'll say that again, because I don't think you heard it. If you want to argue that Hamas is responsible for Israel killing innocent civilians, you're in the same intellectual and moral space as people who argue that Israel is responsible for Hamas killing innocent Israeli civilians.
Why? On what basis?
I'm going to leave you to think about that. I'm going to leave you to think about that, Johnny.
That was a useless call. No, it wasn't a useless call. I mean, he absolutely cooked him. But the thing is, this Zionist isn't going to walk away thinking that, you know what, James has a point. He's not. He's going to double down, and he's going to run cover for genocide still. I don't have much else to say about this. I've said all my piece while we watched that. I apologize, by the way. I'm sure that was frustrating, me pausing all the time to give you my, not great 2 cents. But, hey, it is what it is. Thank you so much for watching. If you can, please subscribe. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think below. And please go to thetungstenwire.com and subscribe. If you want to reach out to us, you can reach out to us at contact@thetungstenwire.com. That's contact@thetungstenwire.com. And if you would like to write for us, if you are an op-ed writer, if you are a blogger, if you are a not journalist, but a person who writes journals or whatever, and you want to work with us, let us know. You do not need to have any experience. We will, depending on where you are, we can talk about rate of pay, and everything like that. Reach out to us at contact@thetungstenwire.com. We are a leftist publication, so if you decide that you want to write for us, but you are a centrist, a liberal, or a conservative, you are not welcome. Sorry. If you are a normie like James O'Brien, you are probably not going to want to write for us. But if you are a leftist, if you are the Jeremy Corbyn-esque type of person, if you are a Green Party type of supporter, let us know. If you are Bernie Sanders type of supporter, even though I have a lot of problems with Bernie Sanders, reach out to us. We would love to discuss it with you. Anyways, thank you for watching, and have yourself a great and wonderful rest of your day. Peace be upon you.